Got me wondering how I got into this mix.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick, and we're here at the Palm Beach County Courthouse. Just wrapped up the civil trial dealing with Mr. Bradley Edwards, attorney who's represented many of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. First off, thank you so much for your work and for everything you've done.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
So just go ahead and give everybody a rundown of what happened today, what took place, and why we're not going to be here for 10 days.
Well, this was originated out of a case where I represented a number of victims of Jeffrey Epstein's serial child molestation. And at some point in time, Mr. Epstein didn't like the way in which I was prosecuting those cases, a bit too aggressive for him. So he filed a lawsuit against me, making all kinds of false allegations. But he had a lot of lawyers. It took a lot of time. I had to get my own lawyer, who you saw, Jack Scarola, and we've been defending that case since 2009. When I got that case dismissed against me, I sued him. So today was supposed to be my malicious prosecution action, where I was to prove that the action he filed against me was malicious and it was false. Yeah. Well, he settled that case for an undisclosed monetary amount, but also a very clear public apology, affirming what this trial would have proven, which is all of the allegations he made against me were false, and all of the allegations I made against him were true.
Absolutely, which is a big step because those allegations, obviously, as you said, were related to his many victims. Now, some of the things that I've been digging and finding out, and most recently the Miami Herald has kind of helped this case go wider, because as you yourself, you've been litigating this for a decade now.
Yeah. Other
independent journalists and a few in the mainstream have been talking about it, and as you said, usually focusing on the salacious kind of tidbits of who's connected to whatnot. But you did mention that, you know, there are victims all around the world. Epstein had houses in New Mexico, New York, Paris, his island, and it seems that there are victims in each of those places where he was located. Can you elaborate any more on that, or are you able to?
Well, I mean, if you just look at some of the evidence in the case, such as the police reports and the message pads left at his house, you will very quickly realize the frequency with which he engaged in that type of activity. And then you just look, he doesn't stay in one place. He travels around. He travels to his various places. There was a document that we uncovered at one point in time that came from his home where he listed massage. And under massage were the names of basically all of the Florida victims. But it wasn't only a Florida section. There was a California section, massage. New Mexico, massage. Virgin Island, massage. And so it begs the question, what is he doing in these various places? And is it any different than what he was doing here? Yeah. And why, you know, the U.S. Attorney's Office took a lot of heat for the way they handled this and the lenient deal that they gave him. Yeah. But what other U.S. Attorney's Office has investigated anything? Mm-hmm. Has even attempted to investigate anything? So I think that today is a powerful day because it at least tells victims you can stand up, your voice will be heard, and people side with you these days and against the perpetrator, whereas that wasn't always the case even 10 years ago. I mean, we are in a different time.
No, absolutely. I would say even the fact that this is being reported on the mainstream and it's actually getting press, like, is a shift. And the document you mentioned a moment ago listing the massages, is that the little black book, the Holy Grail, that I think that's the way you refer to it in the documents, right?
Right, exactly. And that's actually a document that his housekeeper stole from him at some point in time. Yeah. And a long story, but eventually tried to sell it to me, and then I had to cooperate with the FBI. And
he gets more time than Epstein does.
He got more time, and then I think he died as soon as he got out of
shortly
prison,
after that.
which
I saw that.
Very unfortunate, because he was one of the only people that we talked to who showed up to a deposition and was not represented by a lawyer that was being paid for by Jeffrey Epstein, or he didn't take the fifth like many of the other witnesses. He was
willing to speak.
He was willing to speak and willing to tell the truth, and then he just decided to do something stupid and illegal. And ruined all of the credibility that came along with him. I mean, that was one of the most unfortunate and sad parts of the entire investigation.
Will that piece of evidence still be admissible in court? Or is it tainted now that he's tried to sell it? Or how does that...
Well, it should still be admissible because Jeffrey Epstein himself, for instance, could authenticate that document. I mean, it came from his house. Yeah. Anyone who's ever seen that document in his house probably has the ability to authenticate the document. Plus, if you look at the numbers in it, there's just no other possible way to accumulate the information in that book without it being totally authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just one more question on that document, and this goes to the more salacious rumors, but I would like you to just, whatever you can say on it. Obviously, our current president has had relationships with Epstein in the past, and there are those Katie Johnson and maybe other victims who have accused Trump of being involved in things like this. In my experience, Trump supporters will not listen to anything along those lines. Obviously, we're not a court of law here right now, but are those claims of that case was dropped? It was dropped before it went to court. In your opinion, as a lawyer and your experience, is there anything you can say as to the validity of those claims, or whether or not there will be any more about that?
Nothing at all. The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
I definitely heard that, and I don't know that it was Trump himself as opposed to a manager there.
But it's Trump's club, so
yeah,
people credit him.
I've heard the rumor that Epstein was kicked out of there for allegedly trying to pick up somebody's daughter or something like that. But I think I did chase that down as far as I could, and never was able to confirm it. But I heard it.
I'm on the same boat with that. And just as far as Mar-a-Lago, that's where Virginia Roberts was kind of brought into the whole scheme, right? Via
that's
Maxwell.
where she was recruited.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's where she was recruited and brought to Jeffrey Epstein's house. So, the story of someone else being recruited there is not so far-fetched.
Absolutely.
It's believable.
All right. Well, I know you're busy. Anything else you'd like to just leave the audience with as far as what we can expect going forward, how they might be able to support? I mean, you guys did a great press conference here, kind of putting the impetus on the press and on the people who really, you're in the courtrooms doing what you can, what we can't do, and myself as a journalist and other people out there sharing content, sharing articles. What can we do now?
Well, look, what I do is help crime victims.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody who was the victim of a violent crime or a sexual assault, that's what I do, and that's where the focus should be.
Sure.
So anything that the media can do to help reframe the whole picture, to focus more on the victims, not in a way of putting a camera in their face and just tell me all the bad stuff so I can move on, but what did you go through and what would help you heal? Yeah. And look, be courageous and reward the courage for coming forward, rather than nitpick the little things, the flaws that each victim may have when they come forward. I mean, that's what scares them all into silence. And so the more this is out in the light, the less it's going to happen. I always say, I don't want to have a